So it takes forever to finally get on the field for the first game, and then it seems like it took forever to finally get us a couple days away from game number 2 in the Big Ten for Nebraska, with, of course, the Wisconsin game canceled last week. We got the Huskers and the Wildcats at Northwestern. Welcome in, everyone, to Nebraska Cornhuskers Live, our second edition. We come your way every Thursday night, 6 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Central. Want to remind everyone out there that Nebraska Live is only possible and brought to you by the fine folks and the Cornhusker fans at Phone Genie. So go to ToleyBrothersLick.com. I'll bring up the banner. It's going to be displayed throughout the show. ToleyBrothersLick.com. Tolley Brothers, they offer products for home and workplace use to delivers products and serious effective germ mitigation efforts. So you got to check out the products they have. And in this day and age, and entering the season that we are, as things are getting colder, it's been really nice in the mid 60s where I am, but it's coming real soon. We had snow last weekend, then back up into the 60s, and now again we've got the winter weather coming. So keep that in mind during cold and flu season. It's ToleyBrothersLick.com. Check out the banner below once we post it. Greg Peterson's on the line to talk Nebraska football. Greg, a bit under the weather, but he is a gamer. You can check out Greg and the rest of the staff at Husker Online. Other than the voice, Greg, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I don't feel bad at all. It's just I sound bad, so I'm not sick. Just trying to be heard here. Hopefully you can hear me.
We can hear you, Greg. Don't strain it. That's why we've got microphones. We can hear you. Keep sipping the hot tea, and we'll talk some Nebraska football. And we got somebody to help you out besides myself. We got Chris Wall again coming in from Husker Hype, actually making an early appearance this week. Hey, Chris, how you doing?
Hey, yeah, I'm back a little early. The daylight savings time helped me out this week a little bit.
Very nice. Greg is much appreciated. Greg feeling a little, not necessarily under the weather, but the voice is shot, the throat shot for Greg. So we'll expect myself and Chris to chime in a little bit more on Nebraska football. So
Greg, you didn't even have a game to
What's that, Chris?
I was saying, Greg, you didn't even have a game to yell at this week. Where'd the voice go?
I don't know. It just happened here yesterday, so I don't know. Yelling at the dogs too much, I think.
Oh, okay.
Poor dogs. They'll get a little break from you here for the next few days.
Yeah.
Well, I certainly have some things to dive into, but I want to leave it up to you two. You're the Nebraska experts. So, Greg, we'll start with you in regards to anything on your mind, anything come out of the news conference this week, or conversations with the players that struck you.
Well, first off, today, actually, Scott Frost had his Thursday press conference, always the last press conference of the week. He only went about 5 minutes, but I thought it was very interesting what he said about the young wide receivers today, about getting those guys on the field. Apparently, there's been some struggles of these guys getting reps in practices due to, certain illnesses and injuries and no-shows, apparently. So it sounds like things are getting back to normal. The big question on everybody's mind is Omar Manning. And Coach Frost said that he's ready to go, and we should see him a little bit on the field, as long as some of the other younger wide receivers that we're kind of waiting to see break out. So that's something that I'm looking forward to seeing again this Saturday. Hopefully we do get to see what those guys can do and see what this offense is like with all of its weapons.
Yeah, I heard some of the news conference as well and jotted the same thing down. I'm sure everybody's excited, Chris, to see Omar Manning in particular, but Frost talked about the entire 2020 wide receiver core, that it's time for those guys to step out. They've shown some good things in practice, but just because of the circumstances, the situation, and of course they've only played one game, but they couldn't really feature those guys or show them much against Ohio State, but we should expect to see them more down the road.
Yeah. To reiterate what Greg said, I think, Frost is always so reluctant to come out and say, yes, this guy is playing. But he did say that Omar is ready to play, which in my mind, he's going to get at least some reps. I don't expect it to be full go 100%, but he'll get out there and I think he'll get some targets. And I'm really excited to watch him block too, because I mean, we need guys out there on the perimeter to block for the running backs and whatnot. And behind him, I'd really like to see Alante Brown. I mean, like we saw some flashes of him, but Alante Brown, and then obviously just get Wandale a few more touches. But as far as the game plan goes, I think they'll want to run it a little bit more. I don't know how much you'll see of that dual quarterback attack like we saw against Ohio State with Luke and Martinez coming in and out so much. I think they'll want to establish more of their offense and maybe run a little bit more tempo.
It's certainly not something that you can live on, but at the same time, Luke McCaffrey hit up the Buckeyes for that huge play on the opening drive. So you would think it would be something that they would want to go to, depending on what the defense is showing them, but still a few times a game.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think I was reading something today that alluded to the fact a couple years ago, Northwestern really struggled against Indiana when they threw the same kind of concept at them. So, yeah, I mean, they saw some great success with Luke and Martinez coming in there. So I don't think it's something they should necessarily completely go away from. But I think you got to find a way to get Mills some more carries and get Wandale some more touches in the open field. I'm not sure with Martinez too. I know he's wearing like a brace on his left hand, so I don't know if there's much to that. I know he kind of hurt his hand in the Ohio State game. I don't know, Greg, if you know more about that, but I saw in practice he was wearing that. I don't know how much that will affect him, but that was notable.
I don't think it'll affect him very much at all. I think it just looks like a precautionary thing to me. Probably just looks like a bigger deal than it is, but we'll see. I'm looking for Adrian. This is his chance really to show, what he can do against a team that he's seen twice already. He hadn't had his best games against them. When he was a freshman, I knew he threw a couple of picks. He did have a couple touchdowns, but, some decent passing yardage, decent running yardage. Last year, he did get banged up in that game. Really didn't get to do much, but, he's basically had a week and a half to work on Northwestern to, get ready for a team that he's very familiar with, because they're not going to do much different this year than they've done in the past. They run the same scheme, and this is a game that I think that if Adrian Martinez can hold on to the ball, don't turn the ball over, and just take what take what Northwestern gives him, then I expect for a great game out of Adrian. So I'm not worried about any kind of a injury with his hand moving forward. And also, I think, I agree with you, Chris. You got to get Luke McCaffrey out there as well in some sort of fashion. I don't think they're going to go away from that. They showed that in that Ohio State game, and I think they kind of showed that a little earlier than they wanted to show that. But I think you're moving forward. You're going to see a lot of Luke McCaffrey in there as a running back, as a wide receiver, and as a quarterback. I think it's just, you got two weapons like that. You got to use them. And, Northwestern's the one who's going to have to prepare for this for two different quarterbacks, two different styles. So I give that advantage to Nebraska.
Yelly Belly likes Huskers to win 38-12. That would certainly buck a trend in this series. This is always a great game. It was only 13-10, so a low-scoring affair last year. But if you look through the series since Northwestern, or I should say Nebraska, joined the Big Ten, of course, they've played some wild games and down to the wire, these two. And it's a noon kickoff, Eastern Time, 11 local time, Big Ten Network. Luke Reimer, inside linebacker, expected to play. Scott Frost announced that as well. He talked about the line play against Ohio State. And again, throw out the score of 52-17. If you really look at the game against the Buckeyes last year and try to compare it to what happened this year, just two different teams on the field. And Nebraska, both sides of the ball really held up at the point of attack against Ohio State.
Well, they did. We talked about that last week. You know, I was impressed with that line play, and if you know, on the defensive line, especially that, you know, without two of those turnovers that led to 14 points for Ohio State, that score is a lot different. And, you know, Nebraska is basically holding their own as far as what they wanted to do, you know, in stopping Ohio State. They were eliminating that big play, but, you know, Fields definitely, he completed a lot of passes, but they were all the shorter type of passes. So Nebraska did keep them. They kept them where they wanted to, but they just couldn't get off the field on third down. And, you know, but they did keep those big plays in check. So this week, I'm looking forward to seeing that defensive line to see what they can do against a team that's, you know, that runs more of a grinded out game. A team that's going to be, you know, they go for it on fourth down a lot. You know, they're not a team that's scared to be in a third and medium. That's kind of where they like to be. So, you know, they're gonna keep the ball as much as possible. They're going to try to keep Nebraska's offense from being out there, and they're going to try and wear down that Nebraska defense. So, you know, and then the offensive line, if they can keep playing the way they did last week, and, you know, improve a little bit on this run game and establish a running game, then, you know, I look for Nebraska to actually have a pretty good day. And I expect Nebraska to win on Saturday. And, you know, like you said, this is usually a real tight series, but I like Nebraska by a couple of touchdowns, to tell you the truth. I don't know what you're thinking on that, Chris.
Yeah, I'm around there too. I think probably around a 7-8 spread. I like us to win. I think thinking about this game and going into it, I personally agree with you. I think it all starts with our D line. Those big guys, I like them getting penetration. I thought Ty Robinson looked really good. I thought Phildarius Payne, I thought he had a sneaky good game. He was kind of always in the backfield and being destructive. But I think if our D line can obviously stop the run and then develop some type of a pass rush, get off the field, like you said, on third down, I really like our defense to come up with some stops, and the offense, you know, move the ball and score points. So I think I'm probably around 31-24 right now.
I'm surprised that you guys are that confident and high on the Huskers. Not that they can't win the game, not that they shouldn't probably from a talent standpoint win the game. Northwestern's a 3.5 to 4 point favorite, according to Vegas. Obviously, they're 2-0. They've beaten a pretty good Iowa team, what is typically a good Iowa team last week, down 17-0. Once they started or stopped turning the ball over, that's when they took control of the game. The week before, you know, you draw the conclusion that Maryland's awful, 43-3, and then Maryland turns around and beats Minnesota in overtime. So we're still trying to figure out things in the Big Ten besides Illinois' bad and Ohio State's good. Everything else in between, we're trying to figure out pretty much week to week. You know, you get a key on Michigan beating Minnesota, who was a top 10 team last year, by 4 touchdowns the first week, and then Minnesota turns around and blows a 17-point lead to an awful Maryland team, or again, what we thought was an awful Maryland team, and on and on and on. So every week just unlayers another bit of information and another game to go by to see where these teams are gauged. But, man, the history is just that this is a nail-biter every year. Peyton Ramsey, good quarterback, transfer from Indiana, taken over there at Northwestern. He's 34 for 48 so far this year. They got Isaiah Bowser, who's been their main back for the last few years, and he's still going to. What's that?
Sha-na-na.
Yeah, a little Bowser reference there from Sha-na-na. That's going way back. And, yeah, Bowser, he's not going to excite anybody. He's not going to take one to the house, but he grinds out the yardage. He had 85 on 25 carries against Iowa last week. Kyrick McGowan, 5 catches, 63 yards against the Hawkeyes. These two dudes at defensive end and outside linebacker, Blake Gallagher and Patty Fisher, these guys seem like they've been on campus for 8 or 9 years. They both racked 11 tackles last week. It pretty much seems like they have. But this team went to a Big Ten championship game 2 years ago, so certainly they're not fazed by anybody on the other sideline. So I expect a really good game. I want to watch it. I know there's about 5 games at noon that I want to see, but this is one of them. So I'll either watch it live or watch it on DVR because I want to see these two go at it. The winner of this game starts to get some traction in the division. Who knows what's going on with Wisconsin, maybe never seeing the field, and Minnesota's already 0-2, and Iowa's already 0-2. So it could be a jumbled mess. As soon as Scott Frost took over at Nebraska and PJ Fleck at Minnesota, and we haven't seen it at Nebraska, but I believe it's coming. We've seen it at Minnesota. My thought has been, man, Wisconsin and Iowa have been the 2 teams. This may be, for the next 4 or 5 years, the most balanced division in college football.
It could be. It could be.
Purdue? Haven't talked about them. All those teams are capable except Illinois.
Yeah.
Like, everybody's pretty good.
Yeah, it really has. It's gotten really competitive, and, I think it's going to stay this way. Absolutely. It is one of the most intriguing divisions out there in all of college football. I kind of wanted to go back, with Chris and I's optimism about this weekend. I mean, you kind of hit on it too, Mark. Nebraska is a complete unknown right now. Playing one game, and I think everybody wants to see them explode. I think that we're both in that same kind of boat, and I think that's kind of where our optimism is coming from at this point. Because usually you do get a chance to sharpen your teeth a little bit with a few games before you jump in there with a team like Ohio State. So, Nebraska's got to have more practices under their belt than any other team that's played one game ever. And like Coach Frost even mentioned today, it's so strange because it's November and Nebraska hasn't even had a home game yet. So, right now with Northwestern has got to have, right now, everything out there for them is there. They can take a huge lead, pretty much almost take this division here 3 weeks into it. So, this is going to be a competitive division, I think, for years to come. And you want to throw this year out, obviously, with everything that's going on. Wisconsin, like you said, who knows if they're even going to play again with what's going on around there. So I don't know. It's it's interesting to see, but moving forward, I think this could be anybody's league. Everybody's coming up, and we're still always going to be chasing Ohio State, but the rest of the pack is pretty close.
Like to remind everybody in the live chat, if you're a Nebraska fan, let your family, your friends, those people on social media that you are friends and acquaintances with know that we are here every Thursday night talking Nebraska football, 6 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Central. And as you guys get a flavor of, as you can imagine, with 22,000 subscribers from all fan bases, because we talk all teams. So we've got Clemson and Michigan and Ohio State and Georgia in here and Notre Dame, and I forget who else I've seen in here, but we got some Nebraska fans as well. And George is a bit still hurt about that beatdown in the 95 Fiesta Bowl. Remember that one, 62-24. Yeah, those were the good old days.
That was fun.
Yeah.
Those were the good old days.
Tommy Frazier, holy cow, touchdown.
Yes.
Frazier, yeah, that was awesome.
That's when Tom Osborne did a heck of a job taking that program from all that muscle and added some speed, and suddenly could beat anybody, and did. 3 national championships. Good stuff. Nebraska at Northwestern. I think it's going to be a tremendous, tremendous game. Chris, what you got for us?
Well, I just wanted to touch on the success of the conference. You guys were alluding to that, and I think you have to think about the tenures of the coaches in the West. If you think about Fitzgerald and you think about Ferentz and you think about Braum, they've been there for a long time, and they've gone through some really bad years. And I think they're just starting to see that success now from being there for so long. So I think as a Nebraska fan, you kind of have to see that and roll with Frost and know that it's coming. So there's that. And then as far as our optimism goes, I think Northwestern's a great team. They're solid. They have great linebacker play. They fit run gaps. They get creative on offense. They run jet sweeps, multiple scat backs out of the backfield. But I just think it's year 3 for Scott Frost. I think he's got some bigger, stronger, faster guys. And I think it's time to go out there and show that you've kind of turned a corner somewhat physically, that you're not going to get shoved around. And I think they need to be a more physical team and show that and turn that corner this weekend. It's a big game. It's a really big game. Like you said, win this game and you're in control of the West. So it's one of the biggest games, I think, in Frost's tenure. I know it's a weird year, but I think it's as much of a must win as there's been recently.
Yeah, so you pretty much pinned it there. I don't know if you're in control of the West. Purdue hasn't lost, right? No, they didn't play last week.
They don't play this week.
They beat Iowa. They beat Illinois. They're 2-0. Yeah, they don't have the Wisconsin game. But point well taken. Nobody's going to come through this thing unscathed. So if you can get, that first win with one loss, then you're in great shape.
Yeah, control your own destiny for sure.
Cut to the Corn podcast is on here asking, what do you guys think our offense will do differently this week compared to what they tried versus Ohio State?
I think you're going to see a lot more of they're going to try to open it up a little bit more than they did against Ohio State. You didn't see them go downfield hardly at all against the Buckeyes. I think that's going to be in their game plan. I want to see. I'm also expecting to see, Nebraska tight end Jack Stahl's out, and I'm looking for a sneaky game coming out of Travis Vokalek. I want to see that. I want to see him get involved in the offense. Some of the tight ends, Austin Allen as well. So that's kind of what I'm looking at as difference-wise. I want to see that downfield passing game going as well. Is establishing a run against a team like Northwestern is always going to be important. And as we always say, you got to hold on to that ball as well. So I think there's going to be a special emphasis on that, and they've obviously had a lot of time to work on this. So it's time for them to get out there and show what they can do with some of these athletes that they've been recruiting. People want to see what they can do. They're recruiting high caliber athletes. You got to get them out there on the field.
Anything you think the Huskers might show us this week against Northwestern, Chris, that they didn't show against the Buckeyes?
That's the one I was going to say before Greg said is Vokalek. I think that they throw him the ball a few times. I've heard a lot of good things about him. I mean, we haven't seen him that much, but I think Vokalek, obviously everyone wants to see Omar. I think they're going to have a few designed for him, maybe a couple short, high percentage throws, but I think they throw it up to him maybe a couple times. I'd like to see them get Wandale in space a little bit more. I think they have a few plays for that, whether it be a screen, maybe some jet sweeps to him. And then I think they also put a few drives on the offensive line and put it on those guys' shoulders to move guys and let Mills churn out some yards.
Want to remind everyone that this is Nebraska Cornhuskers Live, and this is only available because if I can find it, bam, there we go. Nebraska Live brought to you by the Cornhusker fans at Phone Genie. So go to ToleyBrothersLick.com. So you got the URL right there, ToleyBrothersLick.com. They offer products for home and workplace to deliver serious and effective germ mitigation efforts. And for people that tell me every day, I hear this from somebody, at least one person every day, do a live stream every week on LSU, do one on Clemson, do one on this team, do one on that team. There was a Nebraska fan who just said, I want you to do a Nebraska live stream and I'll get you a sponsor. So they just made it happen. So there you go. So here we are. And if anybody out there, and I know a number of people do know my particular situation, is that we're kind of past the hobby and fun in games and everything else. I've resigned from my previous post at ESPN after 19 years, so this is what I'm doing all the time. So we've got to create revenue. And again, if you want to see your team, I've got a Purdue guy who said the other day, I want a Purdue live stream. How do I get a sponsor? I said, well, that's the problem. I can't really tell you how to get a sponsor, but if you can go do it, hey, we'll get your live stream running here. So I'm grateful to Greg and to Chris, and we hope to get some other folks on here as well, given their perspective on Nebraska football each and every week, because I can only imagine if this team starts to win, what this live stream and what others and the content that you guys provide on Twitter and on HuskerOnline.com will explode, because the fan base is rabid and it is faithful even during some lean years, and you guys can speak to that. And I think that there is more, and this is just a judgment call based on the things that I hear and the people that I talk to, more interest for Nebraska football compared to the winning percentage over the last couple of years than any team in the country. If you go 5 and 4 wins on consecutive years, just about anywhere else, that interest is going to wane considerably, but it hardly does with Big Red, Greg.
No, it never does. And, you can speak to Husker Nation just for, like you said, boom, you can get a sponsor just like that. That's the way Husker fans are. And, you'll never see those empty seats in that stadium, as long as they're going to play football in this state. You've seen other programs across the country, when they fall off, their fan attendance drops off. That doesn't happen around here because people just live and breathe Nebraska football. I don't care if you live here, if you've ever lived here, if you've gone to school here, it stays with you. So there's a big reason why Nebraska fans are considered probably the biggest fans in the country, or the most loyal fans in the country. So it's a pretty special thing, and Husker Nation is a special thing. So Chris knows all about that. So
before you take off on that, Chris, International Matt 1, can I share the live stream on Facebook? Absolutely. Go ahead, and you can share this thing anywhere you want. Yes, get it out there. Thank you so much for asking. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah. I mean, Nebraska football is part of growing up in Nebraska. I mean, whether you grew up there, you grew somewhere else, or you have family and friends, it's obviously huge. So it's obviously people want to win, but I mean, that's not going to change anyone's fandom. That being said, like you said, Mark, I mean, they want to win, and we haven't won a football game in over 300 calendar days. So, I mean, they just need to win a game desperately. So I think they're going to go out there hungry, and I think, like you said, everyone will really latch onto that and hopefully get the ball rolling from there.
So I'm interested to hear from each one of you your story in regards to your love for college football and Nebraska in particular, and how that started and what your connection is to Nebraska football. Chris.
I grew up in a small town outside of Lincoln, Crete, Nebraska, actually. I went to school in Lincoln and everything, but that's just what I was brought up on, going to games when I was a little kid, watching Tommy Frazier on TV, and I wasn't as old as enough to fully appreciate what he was doing. So now that I'm kind of more into it, I haven't been able to see the winning years as much as my family did. But it was just growing up as a kid and going to games every week, and if we weren't going to games, we were watching games, and yeah, it was part of my childhood for sure.
How about you, Greg?
Oh gosh, I was born in Omaha and moved to Lincoln when I was 1, and my dad and my grandpa used to have season tickets that they'd gotten from a widow, because Nebraska fans will know how hard it is to get season tickets. They pretty much have to be willed to you. So they used to go, and I'd get to go to like one game a year when I was a little kid, usually like the Oklahoma game or something like that. And And the rest of the Saturdays, I'd be out in my front yard, throwing the football around, kicking it around, listening to the Huskers on the radio. Because they weren't on TV very often. There was only one game a week on TV. Kind of dating myself a little bit. But
I'm with you.
Yeah, and those good old days. And obviously, I went to high school here. I went to college here. I got my broadcasting degree from UNL. And yeah, I mean, it's been a part of my life as long as I can ever remember. I mean, I always joke to people that the first thing I ever knew was the Chicago Bears, and the second thing was the Nebraska Cornhuskers, and they've been part of my life the whole time. And then the Rivals. When I went to work at Rivals, I wasn't a big recruiting guy. I wasn't into recruiting very much, but I obviously had some skills that they wanted. But the big thing was that you had to be a college football fan, and I said, I got that covered for you, no problem. And ever since I've been a member of the media, you're not supposed to be a fan anymore. So I'm one of those guys that I'm always wearing my work stuff, and I don't wear fan gear anymore unless I'm out of the country. Then I will don my Husker gear, and I always run into Husker fans wherever I'm traveling. So yeah, it's you live and die with it.
Yeah.
International Matt 1, thank you so much for posting this on Facebook. We appreciate that. I'm going to make a comment, and if you guys have any information, any insight into this, before I go to, I've left the comment up here by Sid Irish about going back to the Big 12. I want to get your thoughts on that. But before that, just to kind of extend on what we're talking about in regards to you guys growing up in Nebraska, and then certainly, falling in love with Nebraska football, as I'm sure like 90% of the people do out there, even the people that probably don't like football, just still support Nebraska and the Huskers. I would think that the territory out there, considering that, Minnesota's emerged better in football in recent years, and Wisconsin and so forth, I guess I'm dating myself here. It seems recent, but it's been about almost 30 years that Wisconsin's been good now. They were lousy in the 80s, but that the territory to the west, I would think, would be huge Nebraska territory for people that love college football. Sure, they've got their local universities, but Montana, Wyoming. But if they're going to root for a big-time program, that I would think there's a lot of Nebraska fans that creep into Wyoming, the Dakotas, Montana, out that way as well.
You hit it right on the head. You go to South Dakota, they're all Husker fans in South Dakota. Nebraska recruits Sioux Falls area pretty good, and I've been to all those area high schools several times, and you see Husker gear in the hallways at the area high schools there, because a lot of teachers are big Husker fans. They either came from here or just they're fans. But you're right. I mean, Wyoming, another big spot. A lot of people that live in Colorado might have migrated from Nebraska, and they care. I mean, I have good friends that live in Denver, and they're the biggest Husker fans you'll ever see, and they go to war with those Buff fans all the time. And there's a lot of Husker fans around the state of Kansas, Missouri. So it's a global thing, really. California, a lot of Husker fans. You're going to find them all across the country. Like I said, whenever I travel, if I'm wearing a Husker Online shirt, they're going to know about it. Hey, Nebraska! And, it's kind of crazy how, the population here in the state isn't that big, but a lot of them go move other places, and they're always going to be bleeding red.
Yeah, so Sid Irish makes a comment about going back to the Big 12. I would think, depending on, of course, the glory days were in the Big 8 and the Big 12. The Big 10 has been, some consistent winning early under Bo Pelini, but not getting to the championship, although you went to Indianapolis, of course, the 1 year. And then there's been a downtime with Mike Riley, and now into the Scott Frost. What do most Nebraska fans, or do you two feel personally about the transition from the Big 12 to the Big 10? Has it been good for Nebraska? Are you happy to be in the Big 10, or what is the thought process at this point?
My opinion, I mean, a fan's opinion, probably, especially like a younger fan's opinion, is going to be go back to the Big 12. But I think the Big 10 is a premier conference it's the most stable conference out there. It's just, it's a way better academic conference. There's just so many more advantages of being in the Big 10. And yes, Nebraska has struggled in the Big 10. There's a real simple cure for that, and that's win some games. And then I think a lot of those statements about going back to the Big 12 are going to go away. I think the biggest thing about moving from the Big 12 to the Big 10 that's hurt Nebraska is recruiting the state of Texas. I think has had the biggest impact on a Nebraska roster that used to get a lot of talent out of that state. But other than that, I don't see any reason why Nebraska would ever want to go back to the Big 12. And they're not going to go back to the Big 12. And a lot of the conversation about a rocky marriage with Nebraska in the Big 10, some of that might be true, but they're not going anywhere. So I think my advice is to get used to it and just hope and pray that Nebraska gets a Big 10 title here in my lifetime.
What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really easy to just kind of see kind of the cards that the Big 10 deals Nebraska at times, and just to want to run away from that. And Kevin Warren's not the biggest popular guy in Nebraska right now, but I think that Nebraska needs to stay the course. They need to win some games. They need to build their new big facility in Lincoln, and then start bringing in a couple 5-star guys and go from there. But it all starts with being competitive in the West. You need to be competitive, and you need to beat Iowa, and you need to beat Wisconsin, and you need to find your way to Indianapolis. And I think that they will do that, but they need to stay the course and find their way in this conference.
Good stuff from Greg Peterson. You can join him on Husker Online on Rivals. Also Husker Hype with Chris Wall. Join him as well. Talking Nebraska, Northwestern. It's always been a good game since the Huskers have joined the Big 10. Look down through the scores, and once I looked at them right before we jumped on, and it reminded me of certain games and certain situations that have gone down to the wire with these two. 13-10 Nebraska last year. BGPO Football Funk, thank you so much for the Super Chat contribution. We always appreciate that, And let's see if we've got any comments or questions. There we go. We got John Sarian. What do these guys have to say about elite players not wanting to move from the South to Nebraska, I guess is what that says. You're grabbing guys from Florida.
Yeah, I mean, that's always going to be the hardest thing in recruiting for Nebraska. As somebody that lives here, I've also lived in the South. I own a house in Nashville. So I know all about the South and about the mentality of the players that come out of the South. And it's an uphill battle. First off, you got to deal with cold weather here. And that's always going to be one of the biggest factors. And when you're from the South, you have a certain pride about being from the South, and that's a hard thing to talk a kid out of. It's always hard to talk a kid to leave and go a long ways away to somewhere where they've never been before. And with Nebraska, the key is always getting those guys to come and check out campus. Once they get them on campus, their chances of landing one of those kids from Florida or from Georgia or from Alabama, any of those southern hotspots from those chances go way, way up, because I don't know how many times I could tell you all the kids that I've met that come from the South that have ever come up here and visited, are always shocked that everybody expected to see a bunch of cornfields and a bunch of tractors and stuff. And, actually Lincoln's a real town. It's a real city. And there's actually things to do here, and it's kind of cool to live here. So, and you also get education that's second to none, and you can play in front of the most passionate, loyal fans in college football. So, and you can walk the hallways of some legends of the game. So, there's a lot to offer here. And like I said, the key is getting those kids here, and, you have that chance to turn it. But, it's always going to be hard to get somebody to move 1,000 miles away and to ask them to walk from class to their car in 5-degree weather sometimes in a blizzard. So,
yeah, unfortunately, the way the school year lays out, it doesn't take advantage of when it's 75 to 85 degrees in the Midwest or in the North, and it's 105 degrees and humid in places like Florida, when it would be advantageous, obviously, to live in the North versus the South.
Although
the heat is just brutal.
It was 83 here 2 days ago, and it was 75 today. So,
yeah, I hear you, man. It's been nice here, but not to that extent. 83 and 75. Wow.
First time ever that 3 straight days of over 70 in the month of November. So,
interesting. Well, they need to recruit that. They need to.
It's too bad you can't host anybody on campus right now.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I know the coaches keep their fingers crossed anytime there's a recruiting visit in February. February is usually a time, right, Greg? You're on top of all this, and there's usually a time frame in May when there's a lot of recruits hit campus, but there's also one in February, correct?
Well, February, the first Wednesday in February is signing day.
Sure.
So, yeah. So, I mean, any of those, you want to get guys in during the season. That's going to be you want them to see a game day. You want them to have the game day experience, because that grabs them right there. They've never seen anything like that. And, the 2 biggest times you want to get them in, you get them here for the spring game. You get them here in April. That's great. You get them here during the summer, and then you get them here during the season. Those are going to be your 3 biggest times you want to get them here. Nebraska's done a good job of they've been hosting a Friday Night Lights camp here for the last few years, which draws a lot of guys to come here in the middle of summer, in late July. So there's always some sneaky good ways to get kids on campus, but you want to get them the whole experience. Most of the time when you're going to get guys coming in late, like in December or in January, those are those guys that are taking like one of their final visits, one of their final 5 officials, and they're just trying to make a decision, and they kind of planned on letting it go down to the wire that way. And they're trying to see every place that they can see before they make their final decision. So usually, like, to answer your question, you want to get them in a little bit earlier than February.
Absolutely. And keep your fingers crossed on not just the game day experience, but good weather for those guys coming up from the South, that if they can experience a 65-degree day instead of a 38-degree day, then that could make all the difference in the world. They may actually enjoy that 65 degrees over the 85, depending on the person. Min Steve will summarize Min Steve's question. Basically, Luke McCaffrey. Your scouting report, your analysis on Luke McCaffrey, what he does well, what he needs to work on, what kind of quarterback will he be once we can see him rep after rep after rep?
Well, I have had the opportunity to see him play in high school and as a collegiate athlete, and right now the path that he's kind of taken is really similar to what he did in high school. When he was an underclassman in high school, his brother was the quarterback for his Valor Christian team there in the Denver area, and their father's the head coach there, Ed McCaffrey, who NFL fans know all about. So his brother was a quarterback, so Luke was playing wide receiver. Luke was playing running back, and the whole family. I mean, obviously with Christian doing what he does in the NFL. All these guys are all superior athletes. They're all like almost the same kind of guy, and Luke might be the best one out of all of them when it's all said and done. So, right now when he's behind an Adrian Martinez, I kind of see this development happen the way it did in high school, to where he's such a good athlete that you're going to use him in those different spots to, keep him involved in the offense and stuff. And, when he gets his chance, if Adrian Martinez goes down or if he gets benched, then I think you see the development of the Luke McCaffrey as a quarterback, to see it go beyond superior athlete to being a student of the game and the things that he's learned under Coach Mario Verduzco about the position. I can't wait to see this guy run the offense. But in the meantime, I'm going to have a lot of fun watching him carry the ball and catch the ball and throw it, as an athlete. So, yeah, I can't wait to see what he can do when he does get the keys to the offense handed over to him.
Luke McCaffrey, Chris.
Yeah, he's a tremendous athlete. He's one of the fastest guys on the roster. I don't know if you've seen the guy's legs, but he is muscular and he's an athlete. And as far as his gameplay, I kind of think of him. If you ever watch the Saints, he reminds me so much of Taysom Hill. When Taysom Hill comes in and he can run out of the wildcat, throw the ball, run the ball, runs the ball really hard. But the one thing that I guess you haven't seen out of Luke is dropping back, standing in the pocket, and going through reads. So I think, like Greg was alluding to, when he does get that chance, I'm excited to see, can he be that true quarterback, running the offense. And I do think that under Verduzco and after time here, he will be able to do that. But for the time being, like Frost said, he's one of the best players on the team, and you got to have him out there.
Talking Nebraska football here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. This is our second consecutive week. We hope to do this for a long, long time, and we hope Nebraska can certainly hit the field this weekend against Northwestern, a game that the Wildcats are favored by 3.5 to 4 points, off to a 2-0 start after a 17-0 comeback against Iowa. I got to think that Northwestern hasn't come back from 17-0 very often. I know once they beat Maryland,
I think they score 17 very often.
Yes, I know. They've struggled to gain 17 yards on a pass play over the last 3 or 4 years, especially the last couple. They had one of the most anemic offenses in college football last year. Actually, after they beat Maryland the first week, 43-3, I thought, I'm sure Northwestern has beaten some MAC teams by 40, but when is the last time that they beat a Big Ten team by 40? And I went year by year by year by year. I had to go back to 1970. 50 years ago was the last time they beat a Big Ten team by 50 points or by 40 points. Yeah, 50 years ago. The Northwestern formula is usually play it tight to the vest, play fundamental, sound football, be technically sound, and do the right things, tackle, wrap up, don't turn over the ball, create turnovers, and shoot. 8-1 2 years ago in the Big Ten to get to the championship game, despite probably having the 5th or 6th most talented team in the division that year. I want to remind everyone, Nebraska Live is brought to you by the fine folks and Cornhusker fans at Phone Genie. Go to TotallyBrothersLick.com. It's TotallyBrothersLick.com. You see it there on the banner. They offer products for home and workplace to deliver serious and effective germ mitigation efforts. So check it out right there. All right. Anything else? Why don't we get some predictions on this one? You guys you pretty much hit the mark there. I think, Chris, you said 31-24.
Yeah, I'm at 31-24, and I think it's all going to be about Nebraska's defensive line play. And like you said, I think that Northwestern, they rely on their defense to win games. They rely on their defense to get stops and just hang around. And I think Nebraska needs to when they get in the red zone, they score. And I think that they'll find a way to do that. And I think 31-24.
This is an extremely. Go ahead, Greg. Then I'm going to hit you up with a very generic question to keep things going and close it out here, because Mini Steve has been very persistent with this question. So we'll get your prediction first, Greg.
I'm going 27-13. I don't think there's going to be a ton of scoring, and I think it's going to be a grinded out game, and I think Nebraska hits a couple of big plays and just going to keep Northwestern bottled up. So that's my prediction.
Min Steve, this is a very generic, general question, and that's not a criticism. It's just obvious, but you have hit me up with it at least 3 times that I'm counting. So I'm going to pay off the persistence with this, because they keep copying and pasting it back into the live chat. Min Steve, basically, what do you think of the Nebraska season? Good or bad? And whatever good and bad means, I'm guessing winning record, losing record here.
I take it that's a prediction of the end of the season, but I gotta say I'm expecting it to be good. They've already played Ohio State. Wisconsin's gone now. Minnesota and Iowa are struggling right now. So if Nebraska can throw some wins together, and have a winning record and make a bowl game, I call that good. Bad. I don't. Bad would be the same thing that happened the last 3 years in a row. So I think it's going to be good.
What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, good. They're playing football. I think that's what they wanted to do in the first place. So in that sense, good. I think they'll end off with more of a good than a bad season. I like them to win at least 4 games, and then that crossover maybe and go to a bowl game. But Iowa's 0-2, Minnesota's 0-2. Nebraska just needs to step up to the plate and just come out there and do it. So good season.
There you go. Good season. And I would expect 2021, you two are going to have a little bit more stringent standards to say, let's make a move this year.
Yeah, Big Ten title.
Big Ten title.
Yeah.
All right. Greg Peterson from Husker Online, playing hurt, being a warrior for us, stepping up for us. Greg, we appreciate your contribution. Of course, Chris Wall from Husker Hype. We want you to check out Husker Hype. Basically, you're on Twitter, right?
I am, yep.
Exactly. So Chris tries to provide as much information for Nebraska fans there. And, of course, rivals Husker Online, one of the more respected platforms in all of college sports and college football in particular. So follow Nebraska's football program right there with Greg and Husker Online. Let's all do it next week, and hopefully the Huskers will be 1-1 at that point. Thursday nights, 8 o'clock. Thursday nights, 6 o'clock Eastern Time, 5 o'clock Central Time, and right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Guys, we appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Chris. We'll see you next week.
All right. Thanks, Mark. See you guys.